Okay, thank you, everybody. I thank everybody for coming. And bottom line is, first, we're here to talk about restaurants. Restaurants are a lifeblood of New York City. They employ so many people. They're one of the reasons people come to New York and stay in New York, because they come together and congregate. It's not just the food, great as it is, it's an experience. And they are one of the backbones of our economy. And along with our stages and our arts areas, they are suffering the most. I have particular sympathy for small business people. My dad was a small business person. He struggled. He'd pace the floor Sunday nights at 2 a.m. because he hated going to work. Now, his business was a little different than the restaurants, opposite a little bit. He was an exterminator. So instead of bringing alive things, he killed things. But in any case, so I know how hard restaurants are hit. We're joined by Amanda Cohen. She's the owner of Dirt Candy. It's closed today because all the restaurant workers are getting their vaccinations. And someone who's done a great job, Andrew Ridgie. He's the executive director of the New York City Hospitality Alliance. So our restaurants are in trouble. Thousands more will close if we don't get them aid. People have not been going to restaurants. They have ongoing expenses. They have leases. They have rent. They have insurance. And they want to keep their employees. Because a restaurant, as Amanda will tell you, is sort of an organic thing. Sorry. A restaurant's sort of an organic thing. In other words, the chef and the people who work under the chef, the waiters, the managers, the maitre d', the owners, they all work together. So keeping the employees employed is good for the economy. It's also good for the restaurant as well, as Amanda or any restaurant can tell you. And so we have to help our restaurants. Here's the good news. I've worked very hard to get the Restaurants Act in the upcoming COVID bill, and it was added on the Senate floor last week. It should be added to the House this week, and then when we do the final bill, I expect to be in it. It's bipartisan. It was the first bill as Majority Leader, the first amendment I put on the floor. As Majority Leader, I have the ability to determine what goes on the floor of the Senate. And the first bill I put on was the Restaurants Act, sponsored by Roger Wicker, a Republican of Mississippi, and Kirsten Sinema, a Democrat of Arizona. So it's bipartisan, and it has big support. What it would do would put $25 billion aside for a 6-month grant to restaurants. They're in debt. They don't have loans. And the grant is very flexible. It can be used to pay the employees. It can be used to pay the rent or the insurance or PPE, which, of course, Amanda still has to make sure is here. So it's very flexible and very tailored to what the restaurants need. It runs through September. Now, if the COVID crisis is still going by September, I believe we will have strong bipartisan support to renew it, and I would fight to do that. And the bottom line, in another way, is this. Since this is bipartisan, it has a much greater chance of passing and moving through the House and the Senate. Okay, I think I have most of the major points. Oh, yes. This report about our restaurants right here shows how many will close. Thousands have closed already in New York State, thousands and thousands more. This is crunch time. Between now and next September is crunch time. Hopefully, by September, we will have the vaccine and enough people with the vaccine that restaurants will be able to open and New York life will come back to what it is. But New York can't live without its restaurants. Our restaurants can't live without aid. We're getting them the aid. That's the good news. Okay? I think I covered what I'm supposed to cover, although Angelo, I'm sure, has some very good lines in here that I'm leaving out.
That's fine. We'll just wrap it up. I mean, I think we did. We'll do the questions on restaurants.
Oh, two things. The maximum grant is $5 million per restaurant, $10 million for a chain, and if you own more than 20 restaurants, you can't get it. We didn't want the Red Lobsters and the Olive Gardens and the big chains to push out Amanda. So they're not competing. It's only the smaller restaurants and the individual restaurants that are allowed. That's a very important point. And New York City's 25,000 eating and drinking establishments employed 325,000 people before COVID. That's more than in most cities. That's why this is so important. There's a couple of facts in here that I think are worth pointing out. I just want to repeat what Andrew said. 140,000 New Yorkers have already lost jobs. 54% of restaurants said they would not survive the next month. More than half our restaurants have said they will close if we don't pass this legislation. That's how vital it is. That is much higher than in most other places because rents are so much higher here, and so they have ongoing expenses. In other places, when rents aren't so high, you can get by. You pay your employees part-time. Some of them have been laid off, but you still got to pay the rent or the place closes. You got to pay the insurance. So that fact is important. 92% of the restaurants surveyed by the New York City Hospitality Alliance said they could not meet December's rent. 92%. So this is not just a problem. This is a damn serious problem, and we need to solve it quickly. Okay, questions on restaurants, and then I'll go to the three off topics.
You're talking about 25, I guess, billion and a nearly $2 trillion plan.
Yes.
Republicans don't want to spend anywhere near that kind of money. Given that, what are the chances that this can even survive?
Well, the bill with the restaurants in it passed with 50 votes, and Kamala Harris broke the tie last week, the overall budget numbers. We're going to have to get every Democrat to vote for this act. Now, the Restaurants Act actually has bipartisan support, but because it's in the big bill, we may not get a single Republican vote, which means we have to get every Democratic vote. I am working hard on that, and I'm very, very optimistic that that will happen.
Senator, the old Restaurants Act had $120 billion for restaurants. This is only $25 billion. Why the reduction, and is that going to be adequate?
No, the old bill had no money for restaurants. Restaurants were left out of the last two bills, and that was wrong. And one of the reasons was it was so much money. 120, Save Our Stages was 15, for instance. But now we've limited it to 25, but we will renew it if we run out of money before COVID ends.